It's 12 o'clock, Wednesday, October 27th. Welcome to your midweek Cybersecurity Executive Briefing, brought to you by Clock Tower Technology Services and the United Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm Brian Sulo, your virtual CISO for the next 15 minutes. My company is Clock Tower Technology Services, and we provide IT, telecom, and information security services to businesses with 10 to 100 employees. But this isn't a sales pitch. So if you want to learn more about what we do and how we do it, we can talk later. And now it's time for cybersecurity news and takeaways that you can use in your business today. I'll keep the InfoSec jargon to a minimum, but if there's anything you don't understand, please ask me to clarify, preferably at the end when we have time set aside for Q&A. Now, let's get to the news. According to bleepingcomputer.com, Microsoft has released a new security program for nonprofits to help secure these organizations against nation-state-backed attacks. The program will, quote, provide proactive monitoring and notification in the case of a nation-state attack via the Account Guard program, assess organizational and infrastructure risk to help organizations enhance their security posture based on their environment, and streamline security training for IT professionals and end users. The takeaway, if you run a nonprofit entity, is to check out the offer at www.microsoft.com/en-us/nonprofits/data-security. Speaking of Microsoft, next month they're scheduled to release the Windows 10 feature update for the second half of 2021. Microsoft typically releases 2 feature updates for Windows each year. These are sort of like the service packs of the old days. There's nothing particularly exciting about this release, but I bring it up because as feature updates are released, Microsoft stops supporting the older ones. For example, feature update 2004, that's 2004, not 2004, which came out around April of 2020, will stop being supported as of December 14th this year. Because these are big updates, they don't always occur automatically. You might want to check to see if your computer is running a supported version of Windows 10 by going to Settings and then System and then About. You'll see the version number is listed under Windows Specifications. To see if your computer is eligible for the latest feature update, go to Settings and then Update and Security. An article in Security Intelligence reminds us how it's important to include social media discretion as part of standard policies and security awareness training. Employees who share photos of their desks and office environments without considering what proprietary information they might be releasing to public view can cause big problems for their organizations. The takeaway from this reminder is that your organization's acceptable use policy needs to include a section about social media. This needs to be carefully thought out, anticipating the kinds of trouble employees can cause without meaning to. For help with that, you should turn to your cybersecurity advisor, as they have the most experience in this kind of thinking. And speaking of social media, threat actors are using stolen Google accounts to create YouTube channels to distribute malware. How do you get malware by watching a video, you might well ask? And since you asked it so well, I'll tell you. You can't get malware by simply watching a video, but YouTube allows links to be created that pop up during the video. That's where the bad guys entice you to click on the links. In case you're thinking that this seems like an obscure way to distribute malware, the article indicates that the threat actor being researched created thousands of videos and channels, with 100 new videos and 81 channels created in just 20 minutes. The videos typically have to do with software cracks, licenses, how-to guides, cryptocurrency mining, game cheats, VPN software, and pretty much any other popular category. That's a quote from the article. I have 2 levels of takeaway for you with this one. First, if you have the willpower to resist it, don't do personal stuff on your work computer. and that includes watching non-work related YouTube videos. Second, always remember when you click on a link in a video, you're still clicking on a link, just as if it had come through an email or any other source. Please stay aware and alert. And Threatpost brings us the skinny on a scam targeting Android users being distributed via Tik-Tok and other video services. According to Jakub Vavra of the threat operations team of security firm Avast, quote, "The threat actor behind the campaign is spreading Ultima SMS with numerous catchy video advertisements posted on advertising channels of social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok," Vavra explained. Once the user opens the app, a screen localized in the language their device is set to, prompts them to enter their phone number, and in some cases email address, to gain access to the app's advertised purpose, Vavra wrote. Once the user enters the details, the app subscribes him or her to a premium SMS service, which sends texts to a short-coded number. Each text results in a charge for the user. These charges can total upwards of $40 per month, depending on the country and mobile carrier. And instead of unlocking the app's advertised features, the apps will either display further SMS subscription options or stop working altogether, he explained. The sole purpose of the fake apps is to deceive users into signing up for previous SMS subscriptions, Vavra wrote. End quote. And the takeaway is right in the article. Quote, "To avoid being defrauded by the Ultima SMS scam, users should follow the same common sense vigilance and protocols for downloading and purchasing new apps. Check reviews first, read the fine print, don't enter a phone number unless you trust the app, and only use official app stores. People can also disable premium SMS with their wireless carrier so the threat actors can't abuse the service. This is something that is especially important to do with devices that parents give to children, as they are more likely to fall prey to scams using colorful and catchy ads," Vavra wrote. Indeed, based on some of the user accounts that left negative reviews, it looks like children are among the victims of Ultima SMS, making this step especially important, he observed. End quote. In a Threatpost article from Monday, David Moose Wolpoff gives some advice on how to think about security. Thinking about security is something that is near and dear to my heart, as the thought process one uses to secure their technology assets drives everything else, including policies, procedures, tools, and budget. In this article, Moose recommends a sort of divide and conquer approach. Consider things like which systems need to access the internet and which don't. For those systems that don't need to access the internet, block their access. You'll soon know if you were right or wrong, and you can easily unblock access for a system that was misclassified. Again, the takeaway is in the article. Quote, "You have to design your security systems with the assumption that an attacker can break any asset and own its controls, its privileges, and its functionality. You can defend an asset even when you don't know about it by practicing defense in depth, knowing what matters, and implementing many disparate controls with no single point of failure." End quote. Bleeping Computer has some interesting info on an update to Teams that is available now. End-to-end encryption for one-to-one Teams calls. While this might seem like a feature for the paranoid, it's actually a boon for several regulated industries because it means that specific sensitive information can now be discussed over the Teams platform. The takeaway is that if you're interested in this feature, it's not on by default, and it needs to be enabled by your administrator, so it's not something you can just choose and use. From darkreading.com. A report on how to lock down network printers. But first, why would you need to do this? What kind of trouble can a bad guy get up to with a printer? A lot more than you might think. Printers are just like any other device on your network. They have networked user interfaces, open ports, lots of storage, and a decent amount of memory. Each one is a little computer that can be put to work doing bad things. Heck, Researchers have even proven the ability to take over a multifunction printer copier fax by sending a specially designed fax signal over the phone line. And that's not to mention the amount of sensitive information that goes through a printer to be printed that could be read. The takeaway from this report is a number of suggestions, most of which we've been saying and doing for years. Put printers on a separate network segment and only allow necessary traffic to pass between that network and the one that holds your data. Inventory all network devices. Make sure you know what's supposed to be there and what isn't. And finally, disable any unused features of the device so they can't be used against you. There's a popular trialware file compression and decompression utility called WinRAR or WinRAR. A fairly serious vulnerability was found in this application recently that could allow an attacker on the network to execute arbitrary code on a computer running WinRAR. You likely don't even know if WinRAR is on your network. It's the kind of app that someone downloads to zip or unzip a file and then forgets about until they need it again. Sometimes there will be that one person in an organization who uses it every day for some part of their workflow. At any rate, the takeaway here is, maybe you've guessed it, inventory. Your IT support staff needs to be looking out for these vulnerability reports, then correlating them with the inventory of software installed on your systems. This is the boring side of cybersecurity, but let's be honest, you don't want to get to the exciting bit. Boring is good in this field. The Wall Street Journal and, well, every other mainstream and cybersecurity news source are reporting on a warning from Microsoft that the Russia-linked threat actors who perpetrated last year's attack against SolarWinds have substantially upped their game. This group is actively attempting to infiltrate other services in the IT supply chain. What does all this mean for you, though? The takeaway is this. Almost every piece of hardware or software you use is designed to receive updates from the mothership to keep it secure and increase functionality. Certain management utilities, such as those commonly used by MSPs like ourselves, are designed to allow privileged access to client machines for the purpose of running arbitrary code. If you've been following these briefings, you'll recognize those terms. Privileged access and arbitrary code are most commonly used in the context of threats to your network. Just as a scalpel can be used to heal or to harm, the powerful tools used by IT administrators to keep you up and running can be turned to evil purposes. Do you trust your IT support personnel? I certainly hope so. But do you trust their ability to select tools that follow security best practices? And do you trust their ability to keep their access to your network from falling into the wrong hands? And even more importantly, have you verified these things? Maybe it's time for a conversation about the tools they use and how they keep the bad guys out of them. If you want help knowing what to ask, you can always contact me. And that's the Cybersecurity Executive Briefing for this week. Before we get into the Q&A section, I just want to mention that the best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. Remember that the stories presented are selected to be relevant to our audience, based on the technologies you've said you're using. If you're using other technologies in your organization and you'd like those covered, please let me know. If you're watching this after the fact and you want to be a part of the next live session, visit clocktowertech.com/cxb.html and register for the next call. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe, stay in touch. Together, we are secure.